Hello and welcome to my top 10 Premier League transfer flops of the 22-23 season, aka last season. Now, usually on this channel all I talk about is FPL stuff, obviously, but due to the fact that Premier League is currently finished and all there is a transfer window going on, I figured we'll take a look back at last season at some of the terrible signings that happened. So, I've done a top 10. It could have been a top 20 quite easily, but I've managed to narrow it down to 10. Now, there is three people in front of you right now. Gordon of Newcastle, Nunez of Liverpool, and Scamacca of West Ham. All three of these could easily have gone to this top 10, but they've managed to avoid it this time any other day, and I could quite easily have put these in the top 10. But they've got away with it, and there has been some players that have been just as bad, if not worse. So then, in 10th place, I've got AARONSON of Leeds United. Now, I've only got one Leeds United player in this top 10. Could easily have been two. If not AARONSON, I could have gone for a Rutter of Leeds United. Anybody who don't know who he is, he's their most expensive transfer ever. He came in January, he's a striker, and he scored no goals for you. No goals for Leeds. So yeah, he could quite easily come in into this top 10, but he just managed to get out of it. Instead, I've got AARONSON of Leeds United. Now, this guy, he came in at 24 point something million, just under 25. Plus add-ons, it works out to about 29 million that Leeds has brought him for. He's an American guy. Obviously, they had an American manager at the time. There's supposed to be this great connection between them both. It was going to work out great. He was the answer for Rafinha, I think. Did not work out like that at all. He started 28 games. He played 36, but he did start 28. He scored one measly goal, which was at the start of the season in August, and got 3 assists. That is pretty bad considering how much they paid, how much hype there was around him. He just failed miserably. At the end of the season, he got dropped and he didn't get back in the team. Sam Allardyce didn't start him, and I think Javi Garcia had dropped him towards the end of his reign as well. Not many Americans really do well over here, and once again, another one has not done well over here. Obviously, the manager was also American, so maybe that's why he came over. There was hype about him, and that's why I've got him in this top 10, just for the hype and the price. And there's the failure, not just the goals. I'm not fussed about goals, but the lack of assists, the lack of chances he created. He was poor in the end, and that's why he is in this top 10. In ninth place, we've got Antony and Man United. Now, the first thing that strikes you with Antony is price tag. £86 million he cost Man United. The guy played 25 games last season and he only scored 4 goals and created 2 assists. Bear in mind he scored on his debut as well, so only get 4 goals is a poor return. For me, he comes across as a slightly more expensive Jadon Sancho, which is not what Man United needed. We'll see how he gets on next season, but this could possibly be just another Jadon Sancho. And from the looks of it, Jadon Sancho is on the transfer list apparently. Could Antony be on the transfer list in a few years' time? Possibly. He has a lot of making up to do after this season because tracking back he was poor. Attacking wise he was just poor. He seemed to get sounded out too easily. It was pretty obvious he was just trying to cut inside and shoot. Now, the 86 million price tag is not his fault. It's Man United's fault for being terrible at negotiations. They could have signed at the start of the transfer window for 40 million. They ended up paying double that. And it's really not worked out for him at all this season. So, he's got a massive season coming up ahead next season. Because this season just gone, his attitude looked poor. His goal returns were poor. And his assists were poor. And like I said, he just looks like another Jadon Sancho. And that's not what Man United need. They need a guy who runs up and down the flanks, who's quick, creates goals and assists. And unfortunately, last season, Antony was not that guy at all. In the 8th slot, we've gone from my first Chelsea player. We've got several Chelsea players in this list, so spoiler there. But yeah, I mean, I could have easily had more than I've got on here now. But this is the first one. I've gone for Koulibaly of Chelsea. Now, the reason why I've got him here is, I mean, he cost 33 million, which isn't the most expensive player in the world. But I mean, over the years, Koulibaly's been linked to the Premier League. He's meant to be this amazing centre back. He's so good. He's this, that. He's came into the league. He had a decent start. I mean, the first couple of games was pretty decent for him. And then that first loss came, and people have gone, "Ooh, he looked like he's been damned out here already." And he was. I mean, I think his legs. I mean, he's in his 30s. His legs might have already gone, and he was just getting smashed. I mean, the whole Chelsea defense was awful. It's not just him. I don't think playing as well alongside Thiago Silva helps in terms of pace at the back. Maybe that's what's caught them both out as well. So yeah, he's been massively, massively disappointing. Obviously, goals and assists don't really matter with Koulibaly. He's a centre half. Any goals and assists is just a bonus when it comes to a centre half. But he only played 23 games in the end. He got dropped towards the end of the season, which is a shame, really, because I thought he was going to be a real good player in the Premier League. It's not worked out for him at all. And already he's left Chelsea. He's gone to the Saudi League for about 28 million. So Chelsea have actually made a small loss, but not too bad of a loss. They managed to get rid of him. Overall, that one season he had in the Premier League was very disappointing. He probably joined Chelsea at the wrong time. And yeah, that's why he's in my 8th slot. In 7th place, I've gone for another Chelsea defender in FOFANA. Now, this one a little bit more expensive than Koulibaly. FOFANA cost Chelsea in the end 75 million. It probably will go up with add-ons. I'm not quite sure, but I think it does. And I don't understand why Chelsea decides to spend this much money on FOFANA. Now, last season, well, I should say the season before, FOFANA had that nasty injury. He didn't play many games. This season, he got another injury. He was out for a long time. And again, he's not played many games. And when he did play these games, at times he was okay. But overall, when I'm looking at how much Chelsea paid for him, 75 million, I've got to say, it was disappointing. Obviously, Liverpool, for example, bought Van Dijk for around the same price. And look at the difference there. Fofana, he was pretty awful, really, but I don't know if that's because the whole Chelsea team is awful, and obviously he just adds on to that. But for 75 million, I felt like Chelsea should have really took the time on this transfer, especially because of the injury he had with Leicester the season before. Maybe wait for him to get back into the form he was before spending so much money on this defender. They didn't. They wanted to get him straight away, and they have done. And we'll see how he gets on next season, but overall, this season with the injury and then coming back and being just stale, really, I have to say it was very disappointing to see him. So in my 6th slot, I've gone for the Wolverhampton striker in Gonzalo Guedes. Now, probably pronounced that wrong, not going to lie. It's a tough one, really. But yeah, this guy's in here. People probably forget as well he's played for Wolves or he's joined Wolves. Technically, he left in January on loan, so he didn't even last that long. But yeah, in Portugal, there's a lot of people talking about how good this guy is. He's going to be a great player, maybe like a Nani level kind of player. It really did not look like that when he came to the Premier League. He was dreadful. He didn't really contribute anything. 13 games he played. He only got 1 goal and 1 assist. He was pretty dreadful, to be honest. And I wasn't too surprised, but because he's like their 4th highest transfer fee ever for Wolverhampton, I figured I'd put him in there because of how disappointing he was. Don't know what it is about Wolves at the minute, but the big signs that they've been making, they're not working out at all. And if I was a Wolves fan, I'd be worried for next season. And if this guy comes back, we'll have to see. I don't think he will. I wouldn't be surprised if he either goes out on loan again or if we'll sell him on. But yeah, if he does come back, I'll be surprised if he scores any more than 5 goals. I could be wrong. He could smash it next season. But this season, he was terrible. He didn't last long before January transfer came and he went out the door. So that's why I've got Goodies in my number 6 slot. So I've got Coutinho in my 5 slot. Now, he could be number 1, he could be 2, or he could be 3. But I've got him at 5 because we have to remember this isn't the Coutinho 5 seasons ago. This isn't the Coutinho that Barcelona just signed for 100 million, 120 million, whatever it was. This is the Coutinho that's just been bought for 17 million. So he's not at Bayern Munich, he's not at Barcelona, he's not at Liverpool, he's at Aston Villa now. Now, granted, last season, well, the season before, I should say now, Coutinho absolutely smashed it on his loan at Villa. Now they have signed him permanently now. 17 million, like I said, it's not a lot, but obviously he only played 20 games. He was injured quite a bit, but to just get that one goal was pretty poor, to be honest. Now he got a lot of flack when Gerrard got sacked, as he's the possible reason as to why Gerrard's been sacked. Now I like to think that's been squashed by Emery, because obviously his managing, his coaching the players, the rest of the players prove that that's not the case, and Gerrard's just bang average. But yeah, Coutinho, for overall, obviously the player we knew, I think might have gone. So to be honest, I do think he'll probably leave as well. I won't be surprised if he goes to Saudi Arabia this summer. I'll be shocked if he stays at Aston Villa, because it looks like he's fallen as well out of favour at Villa. We'll have to see. But yeah, to get just one return in 20 games is pretty poor for Coutinho, regardless of how much Aston Villa paid for him. So in fourth place, I've got my third Chelsea player, and it's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Gotta say, I might be a bit harsh on him here. He could easily be in 10th, 9th or 8th. I think 4th might be a little harsh, but in my head, I can't forget the Aubameyang of old of Arsenal. The Aubameyang at Barcelona that did so well. But at the same time, there's this Aubameyang as well, who I did think was going to come the last season, Aubameyang of Arsenal. And he did come. He came to the Premier League. He left the Barcelona, Aubameyang in Barcelona. And he came with this attitude that he didn't really care from the looks of it. He only cost 10 million, so he wasn't too expensive. But like I said, that Aubameyang before, that won Arsenal the FA Cup by himself. Just, he looks like he's gone now. And from the looks of it, he's going to Saudi Arabia, like most of the Chelsea players are from the looks of it. 15 games and 1 goal is poor. Poor for Aubameyang. Chelsea, I don't know if it is his fault. Was Chelsea overall terrible? They seem to have nothing work for them. I don't know what it is about strikers of Chelsea at the minute, but nobody seems to score for them. They're awful. He was awful. I mean, he didn't even get in the Champions League squad in the end. That's how bad it was. And to just get that 1 goal all season, no assists. The Aubameyang of old is definitely gone, and this Aubameyang needs to go to Saudi Arabia and just stay there, because I think his time in Europe is now done. So in my third slot, I have gone for Arthur Melo. Might be a surprise, because this guy was literally just a loan, so how could he be a massive flop for Liverpool? If you go back 3 years ago now, Juventus paid 72 million euros for this guy to get him, and he's been awful since. He weren't even that great at Barcelona. So for that Juventus paid that much money was a shock. And then Liverpool get this loan in. It was a 1-year loan deal with an option to buy after at 37.5 million euros. That's probably about 30 million pounds. He was worthless. Absolutely worthless. That loan should be a free transfer. He played 13 minutes of football for Liverpool's first team. None of that was in the Premier League. I think it was, Champions League game maybe? So he got no games played. He got no goals. He got no assists. The guy was an absolute waste of time. I don't know why Liverpool didn't terminate the loan deal, if I'm being honest, because there's no point keeping him. I know they were desperate for midfielders, but the fact that the guy didn't play a single minute. I mean, he was actually on the bench as well for the last game of the season, so I don't know why Klopp didn't, just say, go on, just go on for 5 minutes, make your debut in the Premier League for Liverpool. But yeah, he was an absolute disaster from day one. He already had injury problems before going to Liverpool. So for them to have got him on loan, it could have been a decent deal, but it worked out as probably most people expected. It failed miserably, and to play no minutes in the Premier League is absolutely embarrassing. It's terrible. I don't know how his career is going to go now. No wonder Juventus are in financial crisis as well. They're making stupid decisions, like they have 70 plus million euros for a player like this. He was absolutely worthless for Liverpool in the end. Absolute terrible signing. So then, in my 2 slot, I've got Cucurella of Chelsea. Probably no surprises there at all. I feel sorry for this guy, to be honest. He had such a great season with Brighton the season before. Nobody saw it coming. Obviously, Chelsea must have looked. He came through the Barcelona academy as well. He must be great. He looked great with Brighton. He comes to Chelsea. They pay stupid amounts of money for him. I don't think anybody really thought, I don't even think Brighton thought Chelsea would accept the offer of 55 million. They did. Chelsea bought him 55 million, and he wasn't worth 55 million. He was terrible last season. He was awful. I mean, the whole Chelsea team was awful. This guy definitely was awful. Obviously, Chelsea fans were used to Reece James and Ben Chilwell on the flanks. This guy is not on their level at all. So for them to pay stupid amounts of money for a guy who's probably not at this level either, I'd say maybe if he went back to Brighton, he'd probably do alright there. But even now, he wouldn't actually get in the Brighton team. So he's definitely been a terrible, terrible signing for Chelsea. He's only played 24 games in the end. I think he got dropped at times. He was all over the place. They didn't know where to play him. Obviously, they sacked the manager as well. They brought in Potter, who obviously was the previous manager for Cucurella, and even he couldn't get a tune out of him. So, yeah, he was definitely probably maybe a one-season wonder with Brighton. I don't think he's going to do well at Chelsea at all. I think it's going to be another terrible season for him. I think Chelsea just have to cut their losses, really. Because, yeah, he was definitely way over his head there at Chelsea. Awful signing. And I don't think he's going to be any better next season. So then, number one is obviously, it just had to be Richarlison of Spurs. The guy was a meme this season. He absolutely embarrassed himself on several occasions. Why? He scored one goal this season in 27 games. One goal. He celebrated, I think it was 3 or 4 goals with his shirt off. That all disallowed. It was absolutely embarrassing. Obviously, Spurs spent 60 million on this guy. I don't know why they did at the time. Even when they signed him last season, I thought, well, where's he going to fit in here? He didn't fit in at all. He was dreadful. When he came on, he was dreadful. To get one goal in 27 games for that price is absolutely shocking. And this season, well, this transfer window going at the minute, he was linked with Real Madrid at one point. Where's that come from? How's that come from? They must have just watched the World Cup, because he did well in the World Cup. He even scored in the World Cup. Can't remember how many goals he scored, but if he scored more than one, then he scored more goals in the World Cup than the Prem. And that tells you how bad of a league, well, that tells you how bad he was this season in the league. But obviously, Richarlison's proved it in the past with Watford and Everton that he can play well in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see how he gets on next season. Obviously, will Kane leave is the big thing for them. If he doesn't leave, and if I was Richarlison, I'd have to leave, because he's going to be an awful sign. He's going to be Spurs' worst signing if he stays in Kane's shadow. So he had to be number one on this list purely because of his price, and most importantly, those memes of him celebrating disallowed goals. Absolute tragic, tragic season for Richarlison. And there you have it. So those are my top 10 biggest flops of the transfer window last season. Now, there could have been other guys I could easily put on here. I could have moved these guys around. Obviously, you guys probably think the same. You probably got your own lists. You probably want to tell me who I should missed out on. You know, I want to see who I've missed out, because I'm sure there's somebody I've definitely missed out. I did have another 10 players though to put in a top 20, but I wanted to do top 10. But anyways, I hope you do like this video, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.